get that. The Pentagon's got a massive budget, as does the CIA, and they will hide it in other budgets. But point remains, there will be millions and billions going overseas, and that should not be the way the COVID relief bill should be doled out. It should go to America first, our people, our businesses, and to hell with the rest of the world.
Von WEHUNT speaks truth to power. Von WEHUNT speaks bluntly about the need to correct America's course quickly. No excuses for putting America first. Von WEHUNT, the Barbarian. Thursday at 8 p.m. The Von WEHUNT Show. Conversation and analysis of breaking news, geopolitical events, politics, history, and some fun, too. Von WEHUNT is an astute observer of the human condition. Von WEHUNT will cut through the political correctness and speak bluntly about the social, political, and economic demise taking place in America and around the world. Von WEHUNT is a nationalist who, without shame, puts America first. Von WEHUNT, the Barbarian. Thursday at 8 p.m.
Now, our great sponsor of the Von WEHUNT Show is Wolf Studio Productions. Mr. Wolf is very creative. Please contact him at 480-271-4781. He does the promos for our show. He can also help out you for your corporate or charity event. And you can discuss your hosting needs or voiceover needs with Mr. Wolf direct. Also, his email is bgw.advo@gmail.com. We like him very much. Again, Mr. Wolf. Now, the last few weeks, the People's Liberation Army of China, they keep telling us that they seek war with you fellow patriots. I've advised you for 5-6 years now to get prepared. Because when they come, we will give it to them like they have never seen before, and it will be talked about for 1,000 years. We're so glad you're here tonight, folks. We have, again, Joe Montaldo, who is the founder and national director of ICAR, the International Community for Alien Research. ICAR has close to 7,000 abduction cases on file. Mr. Montaldo has been a researcher and an investigator of alien contact, abductions, and experiencers of paranormal activity for over 20 years. He is owner of Paranormal Radio and the host of Wake Up USA, a UFO study talk show. He is also a board member representing contactees for Dr. Michael Sala's Exopolitics Institute. You can learn more about our VIP host tonight, Joe Montaldo, at ICAR1, ICAR1.com, or paranormalradionetwork.com as well. So he's been on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. He's been on other shows, of course. Fantastic individual. Can't wait to get more information from our interview tonight. It's going to be very good. You've also seen Joe Montaldo on Ancient Aliens. Again, he's the director of the International Community for Alien Research. Folks, this is the Radio Octagon, the show you've heard about. We have a big show every Thursday night. It's pirate radio at its best in America. I am your host, Von WEHUNT, the dramatic warlord of the airwaves. This is cult radio like no other. You have been warned to enter the Radio Octagon. Now, we have many special callers that do call in, regulars. And if you wanted to be a regular caller, we don't tell you to use your real name ever, because there are NSA and CIA spies that always want to listen in to our show or break up the transmission. So always use a nickname when you call the show, unless you're a VIP guest, of course. Now, we have some really good promos from our host and our host sponsor, Wolf Studios. I'll play one for you now. They're pretty good.
Hey, come right on in. Good evening, sir. I am Dr. Kevorkian, and this is my personal nurse, Ratchet.
Hello there.
We're here to give you an examination on behalf of, Well, the Speaker of the House. Oh, yeah, the examination. Well, do they examine you for using drugs and cocaine? Step over here, sir. It won't take a minute. I'd like you to meet the nurse. Hello there. Oh, hey. Oh, boy, this is kind of rough-looking thing.
That's all right. Just stand over here. We're going to need to do a little physical testing here, and I'll take care of all the rest of it.
What is that? Is that a glove?
Precisely. It's my physical examination glove. You've seen these before, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. I remember at Girl Scouts. I remember physical examination there.
Okay, stand right over here.
Right over here. You got a strong grip.
She sure does, let me tell you. It's all right, honey. Bend over.
Say what?
Bend over gently.
Well. Okay, easy back there, Doc. Easy.
It's all right, just breathe easy.
Oh, my goodness gracious. What does this have to do with brain testing?
Trust me, the one thing I know about Nurse Ratched is she is incredibly thorough.
Yes, indeed, she is.
That's right. Just breathe deep.
Okay. Oh, okay. Are you using a whole hand there, Doc?
All right. We'll be done in a moment here.
Oh, wow. That's smart.
That's not what she said. And Nancy's going to receive the results here very soon.
Excellent. I'll let her know. You keep him busy. Here, give him this to read. I'm going to go out and turn on Von WEHUNT.
Okay, honey, he wants you to read this. Look at this.
What do you got here? Timmy and Kimmy walked to school, then put a tack on the teacher's chair. I looked over there, and I saw a big red dog. The ants in France live mainly on the plants.
You're doing good. Keep reading.
Okay. I'm doing good? All right.
Moron. Folks, we have a lot of people that reach me at the show. They call in, they email. You can always reach me at vonwehunt@gmail.com. Reach me also on Twitter on the legendary Von WEHUNT Show or the Rogue Von WEHUNT Show. You can also call in tonight at the end of our show. It's 563-999-3437. Now, a lot of the leftists and the Democrats and the globalists are talking about the Great Reset. Now, that's just code for the imposition of a health dictatorship aimed at the imposition to take away your liberties. It's measures that are hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. Now, this sounds very attractive to many of you, especially the younger crowd or millennials or Generation Y or Z to get a check from the government. But remember one thing, the government never gives you anything without something in return. And what they really want to do is stop your initiative, stop you looking for opportunity, stop you working, stop you from buying a piece of property, from making a move to a better place, for trying to lift yourself up out of poverty. It's always been hard for every generation, but the whole goal of the Great Reset and Agenda 2030 and in 2021 and all of that is they're trying to really stop people from taking initiative, from doing things for yourself. They also don't like it when you critically think about things, when you think for yourself. They want you to be like sheep with a herd mentality, in an echo chamber where you parrot whatever the CNN host says, whatever the MSNBC, the mainstream media TV talking head says. They want that to be your church. They want that to be your philosophy of life. They want those people to dictate to you, as well as other government mid-level bureaucrats, how to live, what to do, and where to go and what to do when you get there. So just understand there's an agenda behind this Great Reset. They know they can't reach people like me. I'm Generation X. They can't reach people that are, say, over 35 to 40. We're pretty much off their shopping block. In other words, we've had enough life experiences to know the BS, the Bernie Sanders BS, when we see it. We can instantly tell you what it is without having to go through it. We don't have to live through it. We don't have to jump off a building to know it's going to hurt. We can tell you directly, this is A, this is B, this is C. A, B, C, always be closing, right? Like the movie Glenn Ross. But we always know those things. And so I'm a very intelligent talk show host. A lot of the Rhino talk show hosts you talk to or that you listen to they have very watered down comments. They will tell you the RNC talking points at best that are watered down. They only talk about safe topics. On my show, everything is game. We will talk about everything, and that's how I like to have it. So it's a variety show on the radio. So just to know what the Great Reset is, it's very tempting to get a check, a universal income. Your life may be cool and great for about 3 to 4 or 5 years, but then the balloon payment comes, and then the government will say, well, we're giving you this income. Now we want your soul. Now we want your freedom. Now we want your liberty. And remember that if you like to be in chains, it was Sam Adams who said, I hope that your chains fall lightly upon your body when you are incarcerated. This COVID virus has been used by certain evil globalist forces contrary to the safety and security of families and even the freedom of nations to advance themselves over this evil COVID agenda. These forces tell us that we are now the subjects of the so-called Great Reset, which will be dictated to us by the UN and the globalists, evildoers, by their manipulation of citizens and nations. So there's a lot to talk about on that. There's also the U.S. Cardinal a few weeks ago slammed the U.S. reliance on China, stating that to attain economic gains, we as a nation have permitted ourselves to become dependent upon the Chinese Communist Party, an ideology totally opposed to the Christian foundations upon which families and individuals in our nation remain safe and secure. Because we know as Americans that there's nothing more deplorable than trying to steal an election from the American people. And Sun Tzu in The Art of War, do not reveal your cards to your opponent in conflict, he says. When your opponent thinks they have won, then turn the tide slowly. Then strike them at their weakest point. We will hopefully have peace by preparing for war and being ready. All sane men want peace, as I do. But our enemies are not sane men. They are the true believers. They are the zombie apocalypse. And they have already drawn first blood. And I am also listening, and this show is a listening post to all the enemies of America and us as individuals, as I am a listening post to the Chinese Communist Party. And I hear what they say at the CCP is not good, does not bode well for you, my great listeners of the show. Because the Chinese generals and politicians boast openly now that they will take over our nation. They are preparing for war. We'll strike them all down. But folks, we're going to have a fantastic show. Our VIP guests will be arriving shortly. But again, our sponsor is Wolf Studio Productions. Here's a rendition of Star Trek.
Yes, Captain. I don't think I've ever been any more sure of anything in my life, throughout the galaxy or here on planet Earth, but that people need to get together for the right thing. instead of tearing things apart and lighting things on fire with all this war, all this craziness, all this chaos, all this demand, all this unkindness to one another in human nature and throughout mankind, the people need to stand with each other. And never been a clearer message, Spock, than the message from the Von WEHUNT Show, wanting good for the masses, for everyone in the country, in the nation, across the world, but knowing that we all have to work and work together for what we have and to help others when we can, but resist the temptation to riot, to burn, to destroy, to assault, to batter, to beat fellow human beings. Spock, don't you agree?
That is totally logical, Captain.
Thank you, Spock. Yes, yes. So I will continue, as we will continue, I should say, to listen to the Von WEHUNT program. Starfleet, be damned if they don't show up and bring us those gas cards and some snacks, too, while we're here. We could use something to eat.
Yes, I'm getting a little hungry, Captain.
Yes, Spock, I am too. We'll get something soon. All right. Let's tune in.
Welcome
Spock,
to Blog
right
Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
We even have the news from ancient Rome.
And now, by order of the Senate, Gaius Julius Caesar
From the
has
House of
decreed
Blog
that the
Talk
Von
Radio
WEHUNT
under
Show
the protection
must
of
be listened to
Pompey,
each
Magnus,
Thursday
and
night
Julius
at 8 p.m.
Caesar,
All
the
good
Roman
Roman
Senate.
citizens are bound by this ruling and to do the enemies of the show harm, and only if they are able. Those that do not listen to the show will be considered enemies of Rome. Wolf Studio Productions will be supplying the show with great promos as well. The finery of Rome will be on display. No prostitutes, actors or unclean tradesmen need apply. This is Roman decree for the Von WEHUNT Show. A public banquet will be held in his honor by Caesar, and may the odds bless him and his listeners for 1,000 years.
You saw the ads and you saw what was out there on the Von WEHUNT Show. You have to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Go ahead, call up, make his day. It's the Von WEHUNT Show.
Folks, big show tonight, episode 30. We will go where no show has gone before. We are strength and honor. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. It is time for the Imperial March.
I was like, what's up?
How are you doing, man? That was some great intro music for you.
Oh, yeah, I love that, man. I love that.
Long time no hear, man. So glad you're back.
Yeah, I've been staying busy. You know how it is. It's always something. Even with COVID, I've been staying reasonably busy. Surprising, though, I gotta say.
Yes.
It's
no
strange.
doubt.
Well, you know, I do a lot of radio, do a lot of research, and then I run my daytime job, so it keeps me, and then iCard keeps me pretty busy. And then, man, the only bad part is we had actually had scheduled starting in October all the way through January. We had like 11 shoots set up, so we're going to do quite a lot of TV at the end of this year. But hey, you know, what can you do? It's COVID. And the thing with these kind of
amazing. And you got a lot to tell us tonight. I know from Ancient Aliens and from your work. And where would you like to start off tonight, sir?
Oh, I mean, we can start anywhere. But, you know, it's funny because I was doing the other night we did it on one of my shows we did. Basically, we were doing alien abduction, past and present. And what I mean by that is most people don't realize it, but so when an original abduction happens, it usually happens pre-birth. So, you know, mom's at home, you know, 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant, driving dad crazy. Go get me some food. I can't eat it. I got to eat it. Give me something, running him back for it. Just, you know, generally miserable because she's about ready to pop. Well, somewhere right around there, ET takes them, you know, does a complete workup on the baby and then puts them back. And then usually within a week or two, sometimes even sooner of the birth, they take them again. And then the abductions just start after that. They start, you know, when anytime the mom's picked up, they took the kid, and so on until the abductions actually start to separate at some point where the kid's being taken at different times and the mom is, and mom and whoever else in the family that's being taken, you know, is all being taken, and it kind of spreads out. But it really does start pre-birth because when you regress people, you'll find that they have childhood memories of abductions. And a lot of the childhood memories aren't bad or angry or anything. They're usually most of the time I hear stuff like, oh, my bug-eyed friends, my reptilian friends, my weird human-looking friends, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. But there's a lot of that, and the kids just don't seem to have the fear that at least the adults from puberty to age 30 do. They have an enormous amount of fear, because that's really when all the nasty stuff happens. Really, it's when you hit puberty, and then all the way up to 28, 29, 30, somewhere around there, is when they're really, 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 like the milking machine experiments, the removal of body parts, the testing what your brain can take, testing how your mind works, what you can deal with, how you work in certain scenarios. There's a lot of that stuff that goes on in there, and it's for the most part, it's not fun. And I always tell people when they call me or they write to me, Joe, can you please hypnotize me? I'm like, once the genie's out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. There's no magic words that's going to make these memories go away. Once they're out, they're out, and you're going to have to deal with them. And frankly, if you're not ready to deal with them, it's going to make your life even more miserable than it already was. So, we're not psychiatrists, and I do tell people all the time, look, we'll do the regressions and all, but we want to warn you about these things ahead of time, and we want you to know there could be repercussions. And a lot of times I'll say, look, why don't you talk to a psychologist or something? I said, you don't have to tell them that it's aliens, but you can just kind of tell them how you feel and stress, and ask them how they feel about you releasing memories through hypnosis. I said, because, for some people, it does make it worse. Personally, I haven't really had those experiences, but I'm really funny about how I hypnotize anyway. So I've been really fortunate in that. Generally, I can judge someone, and my thing is we do hypnosis sessions, we don't do so if I brought you in on, it'd be like, look, hey, but I'll put you under. Well, I'm not going to put you under one time. Within a week, I'll probably have you under 4 or 5 times, from anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, sometimes even 6-hour sessions. We're doing real abduction. We're not doing this stuff you see in the field, like if you go to a conference, put them out 20 minutes. Oh, it took them 2 minutes to put them under, and it was 20 minutes and they were out and had all this information. That's bullshit. I don't care what anybody says. That's just bullshit.
Right.
I've been doing hypnosis for far too long for anybody to pull that shit on me. I remember I was in Laughlin one year and they did that, and I started laughing, and the lady got really, really mad at me. And I'm like, I said, look, I don't want to discuss this in public because I'm just going to embarrass you. And I really don't want to be mean to you, because I didn't know who the hell it was. Barbara Lamb, by the way. I was like, well, look, I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way. And then, that's another thing. When I travel or lecture, I used to get into a lot more of the groups and go get involved. But I feel like sometimes that it hinders whoever's group it might be. Because, when we start talking, we got a lot of information. So people start asking a lot of questions. So it kind of defers from whoever's group it is to whatever we're talking about. And I just, I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So I was kind of like, so I don't go to as many as I used to, but still.
Sure.
But when you talk about these abductions, like I said, children don't seem to have that fear. Some do, but most don't. And then when you talk to teenagers, oh my God, and I think about this all the time. So you're a teenager, you're going through life, going through puberty, going through everything a freaking teenager's got to go through, plus being abducted by aliens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're not already insane, you want to be insane. It's a lot to deal with. So we don't recommend kids like that trying to bring this to terms. Just deal with regular life, block this shit out as best I can say it, and deal with your regular life. And when you can get to a point where you're more stable, then you can deal with it. Because if you try to deal with it when you're all crazy anyway, it's just going to make you more crazy. It's not going to help you. People say, it's an underlying problem, and then I'll make it go away. No, it won't. Because it opens up a whole new can of worms of shit you didn't even think about. You're going to school, playing football, being a cheerleader, going whatever class, going to college, doing your life, you get ready to get in your career, and you want to stop in the middle of this and find out you've been taken by aliens your entire freaking life. No, you don't want to hear that shit. Unless you're somebody who can deal with it.
Right.
And that's rare. I mean, when we talk about alien abductions, 2% maybe, and we could argue 4%, but no more than that of the people being taken ever have any recall. And one of my directors just wrote to me, let's go with 8%. No, kiss my ass. Oh, excuse my language. But it's 4%, really 5%. And then so, and out of that 5%, only about 2% of them really become like communicators and educators and things like that. People who the aliens have found could be useful in ways, so they might make them a keeper where they're working on board the ship, helping with the children, helping with the abductees, helping with the other contactees. They, you know, helping just to and even helping with them on Earth with support groups and stuff like that. They really they worked it. And then you've got other people out there, which we call communicators, who are out there just to spread the word. They're not trying to convince you of anything other than the fact that extraterrestrials are real. You don't even necessarily have to even believe their story. They're just trying to get it across to people. That's in this, you know, these days there's hundreds of them out there that are just trying to get this out to let people know it's real. And when everyday people, politicians, doctors, lawyers, firemen, policemen come out as contactees, it just gives more credibility to the people trying to come out. And I've said this 100 times. I mean, you know, it's a light like coming out of the closet when you were gay, especially like in the 80s and 90s. It's a tough thing, man. I mean, people look at you like you're just a shit of the earth. You're not worth anything. You got to be crazy. You've seen aliens. You know, so it's just a lot to deal with. So we recommend people, before you go trying to get access all these memories, that you talk to somebody who's had these experiences. You can get in touch with us or any other organization for that matter. Actually, iCard's in the middle of we're doing a major change. There may be even some rebranding going on because of some other stuff we got working, but you know, when organizations grow and change, sometimes you got to keep up with the times. So it's just one of those things. You know, I was thinking about this. I get a lot of Z-Geners write to me these days. And, you know,
Right.
I think to myself, was I ever that young and dumb? Which I probably was. I don't want to be insulting to anybody, but Jesus, Z-Geners. Sometimes, guys, y'all are just... Maybe it's because it's legal pot now. I'm not sure what the hell it is. But, you know, I'm just, some of this stuff is ridiculous. And, you know, sometimes people, when things are really too good to be true, they probably are too good to be true. And when it comes to extraterrestrials, look at it like this. Don't believe anybody tells you. Do your own research. But think about this. We are a 2 million-year-old species. However you want to think we got here, whether God put us here, ET put us here, panspermia put us here, it doesn't matter to me. We're here, so, and we are being visited for, you know, so we're a very young species in the grand scheme of things. And these aliens come here, they're doing whatever. I don't really think, how can I say this nicely? I don't really think that they are here to save us or to wipe us out. Because look at the planet. I have people, the Palladians are here to save us, Joe. You don't know what you're blinking talking about, dude. I've only been doing this for 38 years, but I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, no, man, you're an idiot. You just know, man, the Palladians. I said, okay, dude. I said, and then I'll usually lean into the mic like this, and I'll say, well, why in the hell haven't they saved us yet? I mean, have you seen this freaking planet? I said, look at COVID. Look at Fukushima. Look at Chernobyl. I mean, look at all the people dying all around the planet from just ignorance.
Nope.
I said, but yes, we're an enlightened species. Please show me where. And then, of course, they get mad at me, but it's true.
Right.
But in the same aspect, if they were here to wipe us out, we would be gone, or we would be food or fuel or whatever the hell they were going to use us for. But we're not. So for the most part, they're here to watch us, study us, and really maybe try to help us move towards a galactic consciousness somewhere in our future. But more than that, they can't. One, we're just not smart enough to understand a lot of it. You know, a lot of what their technology is technology, and even a stupid human will know it's technology, but it'll still appear to magic to a lot of people. They just, and then you got the idiots, like 50% of the planet would start worshiping the aliens. I'm like, we're just not quite, just not quite there yet, man.
They would start a religion and build them a shrine.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's just, you know, I love our species.
How many aliens do you think, Joe, are visiting? Yeah, how many aliens are coming here, do you think, of different species?
Well, according to Dr. Greer and him, it's 57 species. But the first time I heard that, I fell out my chair laughing. I was like, what? I said, where'd y'all get evidence for this? And I said, the government told us. The government told you. Oh, okay, yeah. Man, the government told me. Government tells you a lot of stupid shit, doesn't it? The point is based on research, we know that the Greys are here, the reptilians are here, the humans are here, the tall whites are here, the light beings come and go, but they're not really interacting with us as much as they are with the other aliens, because it's just a disconnect because of where we are in the evolutionary scale. There's the cleanup crews, which is the Browns. And really, that's about all that's actually allowed to visit the planet. Now, there are lots of other races out there. According to a lot of the contactees who have visited the council world, there's hundreds of thousands of races. They're just not allowed to come here. And then the point is if there was like that many races being here, by now, somebody would have effed up and we'd have got somebody. But being that we keep it the way we do, and the Greys are supposed to be a galactic policeman anyway. So originally it was the human aliens who came here, according to the Sumerians who originally wrote about this. They came here, and the Nemos and the Dogon wrote about this when the reptilians came here, which was shortly sometime after Sumeria. So it's hard to say what the time frames is because nobody knows how far it actually goes back. But regardless, the Sumerians write in great detail about these creatures that came here from the skies, built these domed white cities, and lived there. They created a race, a subspecies of their self that could colonize. That species decided that, well, hey, you know what? We're omnipotent just like this, and we're going to create what they call the seven creations of man, with us or our cousins being their last creation. And what I mean by that, they tried a couple of different combinations of bird, ape, dog, whatever, to try to come up with a viable slave that could work the planet. So they ended up settling on our forefathers, which was a race just like us, except for things. They weren't self-aware in the aspect that we were. I mean, they could have sex and have babies and make meat and do all kind of stuff, but they never really asked why they had to do it. They never even asked to have why they had to go do all this stuff and give all what they do to their masters. They just never asked. It wasn't in their mindset to do so. Well, the Dogon talk about this race that came here, which is Nemos and them, and they came here and they were reptilians. So the reptilians decided for some reason, and there is evidence that the reptilians were here 60 million years ago. But anyway, they decided for whatever reason, they just went over, started stealing these women, raping these women. These women were having children, and the children were being born different. Well, and I've said this 100 times. I always thought when they said they were being born different, it's like they were deformed or something. Maybe had scales or something. But that's not what it was. They had become completely self-aware. They wanted to know why they had to plow the field. Eventually, when enough of them had been born, they basically, was basically the revolution of Sumeria. It probably was the end of Sumeria, at least in the way of the aliens knew it. Because they had become self-aware. They had become the these species that we are today. And then we find that, so now we know way back then, we had at least whatever our original DNA source was, whether it was an ape or whatever it was, both reptilian and human DNA are in us. So, we got A and B blood, and we had positive blood. So somewhere, and nobody knows exactly why, maybe because the reptilians and human were getting pissy with each other or something, the light being sent to Greys here. When the Greys got here, the Greys were like, what the bleep is going on? So they just kind of took over all the abduction stuff, about 65% of it. They just took it over. And for some reason, the reptilians and humans are scared of the Greys. See, and I was taught, when I first got in this field, I was taught the Greys were subservient. They worked for all these different races. They were like cleaners, but that's not even close to true. There's like 3 different colors of Greys, 4 different sizes of Greys. I mean, this is a serious species. Their ships are alive. I mean, their ships are not even alive. They're sentient. So they're a magnitude way brighter than the others. Anyway, they show up, and somewhere along the line, they enter their DNA in this. What I find coincidental about that story is 35,000 years ago, out of the blue, and for no reason that science can figure out today, Mother Nature created Rh negative. Now, most humans don't even know this, but before 35,000 years ago, there was only Rh positive. And Rh positive, in case you don't know what Rh is, it is a keyword for rhesus monkey, because we share, Rh positive people share 2% of their DNA with a rhesus monkey. Rh negative people don't. We're going to get to that in a minute. But the thing about it is they don't, no one knew that. They were just, positive blood with dark hair, dark eyes, and brown skin. And that was basically the species that lived on this planet. That is not the species that's here today, mind you. But it was a species who lived on the planet. I mean, that's who we were. And then somehow or another, Rh negative was created. Now, people, you got to remember something about Rh negative. Until the anti-adenogene gene was invented, the shot, there's another name for it, but until it was invented, if you were going to get married, you had to have a blood test. And the reason you had to have a blood test was to make sure you were compatible to have a baby, because Rh negative and Rh positive people are not. the baby will be stillborn. So this Mother Nature would not really would not really create something that was going to kill babies. Mother Nature's job is to help us procreate, not to wipe us out. So it was kind of weird that it happened. And then somebody, I forgot who it was a gentleman in Australia had this gene that they found and discovered, and they made a shot out of it. And now, if you're opposite, you can get a shot and you can have a baby now. So, science is a great thing. But Mother Nature created that. Other weird things came out of this as well. Rh negative is the purest form of blood. No, actually, O negative is the purest form of blood known to man. It's where almost all of our hematological research comes from. And on top of that, it's the universal donor. Mm-hmm. So before 35,000 years ago, we had none of that. So we would, if whatever this hiccup was, 35,000 years didn't happen, even today, we would not have Rh negative. So we wouldn't have green and blue eyes, because that's what all started at the same time the mutation started. Before that, everybody was brown-eyed. Mm-hmm. So it's a weird thing that just popped up. And every time I ask any hematologist about this, and I've actually talked to a lot now. The original 3 I worked with were brilliant, but any time I get, I'll write to somebody and they're like, well, we don't know. It defies explanation is what most of them tell me, because there's no reason for it. There is a reason in a scientific meaning that, with the universal donor, ladies and gentlemen, that allowed us to fight wars in a different manner. We didn't have to stock freezers full of, 8 different kind of bloods, just one type. That's it. And so, we could just keep one on file, and it took care of everybody. And it allowed to do a lot of things that we learned a lot from Rh negative. So, and then we found out there's personality differences between Rh negative and Rh positive. It's a strange thing. And then there's some other odd things. First off, Rh negative people only make up 15% of the world's population, but currently serving in powerful positions, right now, 52% of the people in office have Rh negative blood. And I'm not talking just about in the United States. Everybody. I
was going to ask about that. I wanted to find out about the people in the elites around the world. And of course, we've always heard about the reptilians being around the world and being in high government offices and other alien species or the Rh negative type. Tell us more about that. That would be very interesting for the show audience.
Well, when you get into these blood types, it's a very strange thing because, ladies and gentlemen, I got a thing for y'all to do. Okay, don't even worry about the blood types at the moment. Worry about eye colors. So next time you're watching TV, watch the people and the TV stars and the movie stars and the musicians and the politicians. And you'll notice something odd. First off, I want to help people with this. Green and blue eyes only make up 4% of the world's eye colors. 4%. That's it. Out of the 7 billion people on this planet, it only makes up 4%. But you're going to notice something very strange. 50 to 70% of the politicians have colored eyes. Same thing with movie stars and musicians. Why is that? And that doesn't necessarily mean all them people with colored eyes have Rh negative blood, but I guarantee you a lot of them do. Because it's common for people with Rh negative blood to have colored eyes. So here's some mutations. There's something went on in our DNA. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, technically Rh negative people are a subspecies because they do not share that common ancestry with the rhesus monkey. You do. You figure it out. This is stuff that most scientists don't like talking about today because there's no answers for it. And when people like me, they're like, I remember this one doctor. It was so funny, Vaughn. You could love this doc. This guy was such a snot. He tells me, he goes, well, you wouldn't understand this. I've got 3 PhDs. I'm like, well, I don't have no PhDs. I said, I do have a bachelor's in advanced science, advanced avionics, electronics. I said, I also have degrees in several other fields besides that. I said, I'm a trained hypnotherapist. I also carry I said, I'm a licensed private detective. I said, I run a construction company, a radio station, an international organization. So I said, I might just be a little bit more in a ball in a world scene than you are. And he got all offended. I'm like, look, dude. I said, in the end, I said, this stuff, it needs to be answered. And I said, if y'all aren't willing to answer, somebody's going to be out there doing it. And I said, I will keep plugging away until we get to the bottom of this. I said, I can't understand why a renowned hematologist, oh man, I'm getting tongue-tied, doesn't want to look at this. You got to wonder why. I said, because there's some kind of connection to this. Whether it was the reptilians, the humans, the greys, somebody, for some reason, and I don't think it was Mother Nature. I think there was some type of interference in our evolution 35,000 years ago when this was interjected into our bloodstreams. Because before that, and we don't even know exactly where it happened. Was it in Africa? Was it in Europe? Was it in America? Where did this pop up at? And why? And again, no one can answer why.
Intentional.
Oh, I definitely think it was intentional. I have no doubt it was. I think it was a way to start to first undermine the old population of the planet and basically bring in the new population of the planet. So what they're going to do is, just like Cro-Magnon did to Neanderthal, we're going to interbreed them out of existence. So think about this, ladies and gentlemen. When this happened 35,000 years ago, it was less than 0.1% of the population had Rh negative. Today, it's 15%. In 1,000 years, it'll be 50%. And we'll just keep interbreeding until eventually we breed the old out with the new. Is the new any better? That's a good question. I've seen that come up on my Facebook page just now, listening to us.
Sure.
I don't know. They got to be better than anything's got to be better than the old guard. I mean, really, we could get into politics, but anything's got to be better than the old guard, guys. I mean, really. I mean, when you look back at what's been going on in the last, 16, 24 years, it's pathetic. It's insane and it's pathetic. And the only thing somebody asked me the other day about something about Trump, and I said the only thing I'm really going to miss about Trump is he looked like he was going to be the disclosure president. He really, he talked about this on several occasions. He really wanted to be the guy to disclose it, but there's one term. They'll never let a one-term president do it. So I was like, well, they want.
I hope on the way out, if he doesn't leave the White House, Joe, I hope he does declassify a lot of UFO documents and other classified information that can jeopardize national security. I don't think he will, but that's my wish for him, that he would do that.
Yeah. I wish he'd at least do some of it. I know some stuff can't be declassified, and I do know because of a lot of people, government informants and class people I've worked with over the years. I know some stuff. It's weird because the government doesn't know as much about abductions as like my organization does. And it's one of the reasons they ping us and bug us all the time. Mm-hmm. And they do know about contact coming and going, and they've had personal contact. But the problem is it's disjointed. So there was a personal contact. Most people think there was two contacts. There was a Roswell crash, which was a craft that we retrieved and crashed ourselves. But there were Greys there helping us. Well, most of the Greys were killed. One of them survived, and a lot of people say, oh, he just died later on. That's not true. He was actually picked up in Washington State. A saucer actually came to get him. It was one of the deals we had made. We had returned them, maybe because they might have thought about retaliating against because we wiped out one of the saucers and killed 300 fellow Greys. I mean, they might have been a little pissed. I'm not exactly sure what it was. But anyway, they picked him back up. And so, I mean, the government, but then we had other contacts later on, but the contacts don't match each other because the governments either keep that information, each government either keeps the information or wipes it out. So the next government's kind of in the dark on some of the stuff that's happened. And it's sad that it works like that, but, a lot of these secrets are secrets that nobody wants out, and nobody in the government wants the people to know that they don't know what's going on and that they have no control whatsoever when it comes to these beings. None. There's nothing they can do to stop them. They can't even slow them down. And shooting down just pisses them off. You think about it being, it's funny about the Greys especially. They don't even need their ships or their weapons to take us out. They can kill us by thought, and they can kill us quickly, and they can kill more than one of us. An average one little Grey could probably wipe out half a town by itself in a matter of minutes. I mean, they're on a level and a magnitude so far beyond this, and that's funny. That's why when people tell me, oh, as I was sharing a consciousness with the Grey, no, you weren't. It would burn your brain to a cinder, people. Jesus. It would be like if you tried to share consciousness with Jesus. There would just be no frame of reference, nothing to compare to. You wouldn't understand what you were seeing. Humans don't understand. You can't just leapfrog that far up in evolution because you just no frame of reference. It would be trying like taking a Native American for 200 years ago and putting him here with us. He'd be voodoo, spells, magic, go back to the days of the Spanish Inquisitions, we'd all be being put on the rack right now. No matter what we said, they would not understand how we were doing this and how this was being communicated and how we could hear you without seeing you. It would be magic, and they would want to kill you. And for us, it's no different. We're just young. I don't want to say we're uneducated. We're just young. I mean, when it comes to the grand scheme of the cosmos, sentient life on this planet is less than 200,000 years old, and at least in the way we think of sentient. And it's just, we're babies. We live in a universe that's 14 billion years old, and we think we're going to be the smartest thing. And I mean, come on, that's arrogance beyond belief is what that is. It always amazes me when I talk to scientists. The only guy I ever talked to that actually acknowledges, I was talking with Michio Kaku, and we were talking about stepping stone theories. I was convincing him and how aliens could get here without using fast and light technology, which he was amazed that I could even carry this physics conversation with him. And but he was the same way. I mean, he realized that yes, aliens could be coming. He never said that he believed they were here, they were doing any probing or anything else, but he acknowledged the fact through the conversation we had that yes, it is possible they could be here without using fast and light, because we don't need it. I mean, it'd be great to have it, but people don't realize it. I mean, we're already doing this. I predicted this 20 years ago. I used to always tell people when I first started hosting live radio at Wake Up USA out of Riverside, Iowa, I used to tell people all the time, we're going to do this in stages, and if you really want to get space going, privatize it. Now, you've watched in the last 10 years, or actually the last 5 years, 4 companies that got in, 3 different spacecraft are already flying, another one's on the way. Then we got one that's going to be going to Mars in less than 2 years. I mean, NASA couldn't have done this in their freaking wildest dreams. I mean, shit, Elon launched his damn car in the orbit around Mars. It's just ridiculous. And now Virgin's got its plane.
Joe, I have a question for you. Yeah. Right, Joe, I have a quick question for you. What's your take on the secret space program, and are we on Mars right now with our military bases?
I get asked the Mars question a lot, and this is what's weird about this for me. So technically, there's 3 versions of this Mars thing. Now, I am personally privy because I have a Class 10 security clearance, which is like 4 stages above top secret. But anyway. I've been privy some stuff over the years. So I did know about the joint Russian-United States mission in 79 to Mars. When the first TR-3B was assembled, its first mission was to run to Mars because of something, I don't want to call it a monolith, but something was seen by a passing by satellite, and they needed to investigate it. Some type that showed something intelligent on the surface of Mars. So they wanted to go check it out. And for some reason, the Russians were functionally aware of what was going on. I think this was right as the collapse, right before the collapse was getting ready to happen. But anyway, long story short, they went the first time. And then they found this, whatever this was, and they decided that so that Mars would not turn into a feud, that they would establish a joint colony, very small one, and it would be for training of key minds and key intellects. And it would be set up there, and that's what it was there. It was supposed to be, so most of our presidents have supposedly gone there. A lot of them, there's a guy there that whatever this thing is they found says it can sort of predict the future. So a lot of times it'll give you like odds of who your president's going to be, so you can bring them there as children and try to so as I said, there's a lot of different versions of what might be going on there. More than likely, what it really is we probably did establish a colony in 79. We've probably been flying back and forth ever since. Now all of a sudden there's a big interest in going there. So here's the problem. Do you shoot Elon Musk down, or do you let him find your colony? Because he's going to find it if it's there. So what do you do? It's funny because I always said that, finding water on Mars was not going to be the hard part. Obviously there's ice caps there, and we do know that it rained and there was wind, and there is an atmosphere there. So we know there's heat, atmosphere, and water on Mars. You're guaranteed to find some type of life. That's a guaranteed. I said that 22 years ago. Science is just catching up with us today. So it's an interesting place, and we're going to keep going there. So if we do have a colony there that's a military colony, somehow or another, we're going to either have to get it off of there, or figure out how to incorporate it into what's going on. Because the people are going to be pissed if they find out we've had a colony on Mars for 30 years. I don't care what anybody says. It's just
right.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be pissed. It's one of the reasons people always ask me, why won't the government disclose? I said, why would they disclose? I said, think what's going to happen the day they disclose. Every contactee in our country is going to sue the government because they let them get probed. I said, we're going to want answers. We're going to want investigations. It's not worth it for the government to come forward. I said, they would have to have amnesty against everybody involved, everybody who's kept the secrets. I said, that's just not going to happen. I said, so there's no, you're not giving the government an incentive to come forward. They're just not going to. And,
and also on the secret space program, Joe, I got a question for you too. Another one. I've interviewed people before, and I've found this out that some people say, for example, that the German Nazis are in space. Now, the caricature is that they're on the dark side of the moon, but I've actually seen some people on Twitter and elsewhere on the internet in my own research, actual videos and testimony of people who say that there were German UFOs that took them into space. Some say that they speak German at some of these bases that these people have been to. It's very intriguing information from World War II. What's your take on that and the German connection, the Nazi connection?
Well, there's lots of abductions where people are speaking different languages, including German or French, and different things are seen in different places because it's done a lot by zones. But you can know there's not Nazis because the Greys wouldn't tolerate it. The Greys would be like, excuse me, but I will tell you something that I found interesting.
Okay.
I had met with a guy who had met with Neil Armstrong. I wanted to find out about Neil Armstrong's thing about the moon and being warned off by the aliens because I knew there was more to the story. So I met up with the guy. We had lunch. And he told me some very interesting things, but I didn't want to go public with any of it because I didn't know, this is secondhand information basically. So I was having lunch with Buzz Aldrin and Edgar Mitchell in Washington, D.C. I had been invited up there to speak with Stephen Bissett, and I was having lunch with these guys at the Washington Press Club. So I asked them if they were aware of what Neil said. They said, well, yeah, of course we are. And yes, there are. He said, yes, there were aliens on the moon. So I had told him something else that I had learned. And I said, had you heard this story? And this was great because Carolyn Roslin had also heard this. So there was a piece of what looked to be some type of German steel. It had a swastika on it, and it was a riveted piece of steel that had been recovered from the moon. Supposedly, they did make it to the moon, but they pissed off the aliens and they wiped them out.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know, guys. I'm just telling you the story. Don't hate on Joe because I couldn't tell you if it was real or not because I wasn't. I wasn't present there. The only story I can tell you was real is I was on board the Nimitz when a saucer landed on the end of it. But other than that, everything else I've seen would have been personal. That was with the whole ship. The Nimitz has been involved in several recoveries and landings for some reason. I never understood why.
About that.
Well, it was funny for us.
You were on the USS Nimitz?
Yeah, it's on Nimitz, and this was in 81, 82. I think it was 82, actually. Anyway, we had full steam. We'd been launching. We do what they call touch and go. We had planes up and down all day, up and down. And, being I was in advanced electronics, I was also a plane captain on board the Nimitz. I was there, the guy who made sure the planes got launched. I had to make sure when they come in, everything was working right. Make sure the pilots are secure, make sure all the pins were taken out and put in when the planes come back, make sure the planes are launched properly. It's a pretty serious job on the deck. So we're out there one day doing our shit, and had a scramble alert come on. And they cleared off incoming jets, and they cleared off half the crew off the deck. And I'm like, and they do that sometimes when like a dignitary's coming in or something, somebody coming in for a photo op or some shit. And I'm thinking, well, who's coming in? Then I heard my coming in behind me. He said, Joe, clear your people off the deck. He said, you can stay for a little while, and there's going to be a couple other people here, but I want everybody else cleared off the deck. Now, I'd been moving up in rank in the Navy fast. And coming in as an enlisted man, by the time I was out of boot camp, I'd already earned 3 stripes. By the time I was out of school, I already had 5. And, I was well on my way to being into the officers program. And anyway, long story short, I hear the alarm, clear the deck. So there's cubby holes on the carrier where you can slide down in when we're covering planes, or sometimes when we're launching, there's a place where the pit's at you can launch and the catapult releases are. So anyway, I tucked down in there, and I'm sitting there talking to a friend of mine. When we start seeing this thing approaching from the front of the carrier, it's coming straight at us. I'm like, what the? And I'm thinking, are we under fucking attack or so? Excuse my language. Damn, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thinking, are we under attack? And a friend of mine's like, what is that? Because, when a plane comes in, it comes in from the back of the carrier, not the front. Usually, if you got something coming from the front, it's usually not a good thing. So this thing's coming on, and then it stops. And it just stays at distance with it. And then all of a sudden, you see something coming in from the backside. And this is a plane coming in. Plane lands, and it just sits there. And then they clear the deck, put an elevator, clear the deck. Never did see at first what was going on. This other thing comes up, and you see it starts coming in. It looks like it's a saucer. And it comes down and just hovers, and it's hovering right over the top of the deck of the front of the carrier. And it just sets down on it. It's hanging off of both sides. The thing's massive. You see 3 people come out the conning tower headed to the UFO. And I swear, I didn't see it myself, but the video I seen from the carrier and everybody else who's seen it swears it was Ronald Reagan. They swear it was Reagan. Now, I didn't personally see. All I seen was the video, and it did kind of look like me, but I didn't see the live feed, and I didn't personally see anyone get into the thing. But I did see it land because I was flagged off the deck when it came down because they found out we were on the deck, and they wanted us off. And and of course. And somebody said, well, I don't understand how you get such a high security clearance. I said, because being in advanced avionics and advanced electronics, not only did I work on everything on board every fighter and bomber and every other jet, I worked on everything inside the conning towers on board the ship, inside the reactor rooms. There's no place in the ship that I could not go. And the only other 2 people on board that craft that had those same clearances was the captain and the first officer. Most people were restricted where they could go. But I was just really good at what I did, so I moved it real fast. They were like, "Oh, this guy knows his electronics. We want this suck all over the place." So I got to tell you, on board a big carrier like that, there's always some shit breaking down.
So you saw a video of Ronald Reagan exiting the UFO on board the USS Nimitz, or at least a man that looked like President Ronald Reagan.
Exiting the conning tower of the aircraft carrier, going to the UFO.
Oh, he was in the officer tower.
We're pretty sure whoever came in on that plane, we're pretty sure whoever came in on that plane was whoever got on board that saucer. And then we were still on the decks for a while before they released us. So something went on. There was some type of meeting. We were way out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. No way anything was getting close to us without us seeing it well in advance of it getting there. I know there was 2 eye in the skies when
there was no media, of course, no media scrutiny.
There was nobody there.
Film cameras.
And like I said, we had 2 eye in the skies up, which means we had eyes on anything within 5,000 miles of that, within 2,000 miles of that carrier in any direction. There was nothing. We were linked into satellites. There was nothing getting around us without us knowing it. So there was a perfect place to meet. I still do remember.
That was a perfect place.
Yeah, I still do remember when we came back up to secure some planes when this thing left. I still remember I was sitting I used to smoke cigarettes at the time. I was sitting on the side of the thing, looking over the side of the carrier, smoking a cigarette. There was a sub on each side. And it's not uncommon for us to have sub escorts, but these suckers were like tucked in real close to us and popped right up on both sides of us. It's like, look at this. They weren't taking any chances. Somebody else said, well, you just shoot a torpedo at a carrier.
Right.
No, you won't. So first off, carriers got ways to shoot torpedoes, but more than that, they have subs that will get in the way of a torpedo. They're not going to let you sink them.
Right.
But it was a trippy story.
Dave, you saw the video of this, or actually Reagan on board the USS Nimitz?
I saw the craft and the landing. I didn't actually see Reagan. I was back actually on the hangar deck downstairs whenever this was going on, and that's when my first friend said, look at the video. He replayed it. He said, doesn't that look like Reagan? And it's hard to tell, it did. I mean, it does, the way he gated and walked, but I couldn't say. But he said when you in the live videos that came in, the first 2 live cameras don't record, but he said you could see as he turned his face, it was definitely him. And there were several members of the crew that said that wasn't just him. There was at least a dozen people that told me they had seen him on board the craft. Without seeing it yourself. I don't know. And I can't even say, somebody said, well, do you know the UFO was extraterrestrials? For sure. And I can't say yes because I didn't see any ETs. I just saw a craft of a design I've never seen before that hovered and landed on the tip of a carrier, which I've never seen any plane do before. Even Harriers didn't do that crap. I was like, it was very advanced.
What year was this, Joe?
I want to say it was 82.
Okay. That's the height of the Cold War, and this could have definitely happened. I don't put anything past our military for hiding secrets. And being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean is a perfect place for a meeting with a UFO or ETs or anything of that nature that they might have been involved with. Absolutely.
The funny part about it was, I still remember this too. I remember we get a flash in the morning because we were headed, and 2 days later we were headed for port for R&R, and captain comes on. He said to the 2,500 people on duty yesterday, because people don't realize, but carriers do rotational duty and on and off, and half the crew was asleep when this happened, and the other half the crew was awake. And he said for the 2,500 people who were on duty and at work and operational, and anybody else who was awake at these times will now be have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And I still remember seeing the agreement and people were signing, and then my petty officer, my chief actually came up and said, Joe, I need to see you and Marco in the office for a minute. I said, okay, come on. He said, y'all have to sign this. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, it's not the same agreement. He said, one, your clearances are higher. He said, two, he said, you saw a whole hell of a lot more than these guys did. He said, now you want to stay safe and stay out of the BS, just sign it. And that's exactly how he said it, by the way. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Yeah, but it's the reason it just came out for us because it was a 35-year agreement. I thought it was going to be a life agreement, but the guy I was talking about called me when it ended, and he's like, our disclosure agreement's ended. I'm like, what? I said, I don't even have the papers anymore. He said, no, dude, I'll send you a copy. It's over. We're free to talk about this. So I said, I'm going to go on radio guys. You can come with me. No. It's like, you big chicken. He's like, I'm not. He's like, I'm not going to talk about it. But
amazing.
We've had a couple of people.
Roswell for a moment. Earlier in the show, Joe, you mentioned that one of the Roswell aliens went to Washington State and was picked up by another UFO.
Yeah.
Can you delve into that a little bit?
That was one of the president's eyes, and I forgot who was president at the time. But he arranged that. It was whoever the president was. I want to say it was Eisenhower, but maybe I always get them damn guys confused. But the president's one. Yeah, he arranged it.
Eisenhower, right.
Yeah. So he arranged it, and they returned to Gray. And a lot of people say we were gifted some technology. So now we can go two ways with the Roswell thing. This was back in like 88 or 89. I was sent a clipping from a Roswell newspaper that had three pictures in it. One of them was a picture. It was stuff recovered from the Roswell crash. One of them looks almost identical to one of the new 8 or 24 core chips we have today that we use. I mean, it looked a lot like that. I mean, as far as I actually thought maybe somebody had time traveled and was a Microsoft chip. The other one looked a whole hell of a lot like aircraft aluminum. And the last one looked, I would have said it was fiber optics or some type of light activated cables. So this is, by the way, at the time, we hadn't even thought about these kind of technologies. I mean, we were still using tubes and cathode tubes and regular glass tubes for resistors and transistors. So we hadn't even got to solid state form yet. So these technologies were far beyond anything we had thought about. And a lot of people think that the Roswell was the start of the computer revolution for us. We had got the technology there. To invent what the modern computer evolution today. Most people think without it we wouldn't have it. I don't know. People ask me all the time, do I think was it a natural progression from vacuum tube to solid state, or do I think it was extraterrestrial? It could have been both, because most people don't realize it, but glass is silicone. just like transistors are, solid states or silicon boards. So it's not that big of a leap. It's just a different way of using the silicone, really. I mean, because somebody said the other day, "What do you mean glass is silicone? It's made from sand. It's silicone, just like silicone chips are made from sand. That's the same product. It's the same kind of abilities,
Right.
And well, they used the glass in the tubes because they were poor conductors, so it wouldn't leak out. Yeah, the elements and filaments inside was actually what the control was. Yes, I know, huh? Yeah, that's crazy how that
President
works.
Truman was the president. Yeah, and President Truman was the president during the Roswell crash.
Well, this wouldn't have been
1940.
during a crash. This would have been, if I understand correctly, this would have been in the 50s, which would have been about 6 or 8 years after the Roswell crash.
That would have been Eisenhower. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
So I
heard that Eisenhower actually met them. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's where he was supposed to have met him.
Go ahead, sir.
And most people because most people just don't follow the trails correctly. They get sidetracked. The government's bad about throwing false breadcrumbs out there. And it's not even so much the government. It's usually got more to do with groups and organizations that are working with these companies. Because a lot of this stuff is now controlled through private companies, unfortunately. The government doesn't have complete control over everything that's been gained or picked up or found. And I'm not a big crash fan because, first off, I have a hard time believing that these things fly across the cosmos and come to Earth and crash. It just, and then if you go by all the supposable crash today, they got a worse flight record than the FAA does. It's just hard to believe.
Right.
And then there's the other problem. Interstellar crafts are not going to break up in impact. They're going to do one of two things. They're either going to leave a massive crater and stay intact, or they're going to disintegrate because they got some kind of drive system that overheats or something. But that they're not anything that can travel those kind of speeds that can take micrometer impacts are not going to break up on impact. So that's another thing that was so fascinating about Roswell and why Roswell researchers get mad about this and don't like to talk about it. Technically, there's two crashes at Roswell. There was one in Corona and there was one at Roswell. They happened at the same time. The one in Roswell was probably an escape pod of some kind because it broke up into pieces, and that's where the graves were found. The other one that came down in Corona came down in one piece intact, and the beings that were found there looked more human, but they were so irradiated they kind of had melted. But most people thought they were humans. So it sounds like we were trying to learn how to fly this craft, something that supposedly we recovered from the Germans, that the Germans were gifted, by the way. Back in the early 1900s, they were gifted this thing. And that's another thing people don't remember.
Right.
At the turn of the century before last, the Germans were the most advanced culture on the planet by far. They were way ahead of the United States or Russia.
They were, absolutely.
So if you were an advanced race coming here looking to help someone, that's where you would have stopped. And a lot of their ideas were really good ones, even though they were taken to extremes. And so anyway,
absolutely.
They were supposed to.
The Third Reich was very involved in this. The Third Reich and the Vril Society, the Thule Society. They had the Nazis, the Third Reich had a working UFO.
Yeah.
And our allied fighter pilots used to call them the Foo Fighters over Europe.
Yeah. Well, but most of the Foo Fighters were something different.
They had the best.
We've got
True.
Foo Fighter reports from eight different air forces, and I think something over like 1,500 witnesses. Now, they were seen in the Pacific, they were seen in the Atlantic, they were seen over Europe, and all the time, the other Air Force always thought it was the other Air Force. The Russians reported seeing him, the Germans reported seeing him, the Italians reported seeing him, the British seen him, the Japanese seen him, the Americans seen him. They were everywhere. And especially in the Pacific, they loved to play games. They would zip up on them from behind and do loop-to-loops around the craft and dart off and come back and hover above them. A lot of them said the cabins would fill up with this eerie green or blue light, and they would just zing out, zing up, zing across, come back. He says just maneuvers. And what gets me, the closest thing we have to that, even today in 2020, this is 80 years later, are drones. Now, some of our new drones can do maneuvers, some of these maneuvers, but they can't travel at these kind of speeds. And they can't do those kind of maneuvers at those kind of speeds that still beyond even today's technology. So things we were seeing in 1942, and 43, 44, 45 can still not be replicated in 2020. That to me is fascinating. And it's fascinating because there's that many different, and pilots are great. people for sightings because they're really attention detailed. They're paying attention because, whoa, you just, Jack, man, you seen it there? They're giving you every piece of information you can. Matter of fact, at the X conference when I met the two astronauts, one of the guys I'd met there was a pilot who flew over Europe in 43 and 44, I think it was, and he was there to talk about his Foo Fighter experiences. He was an interesting character. He said they never did any harm as far as he knows, but they were always constantly screwing with them. He said they would just come out of nowhere. He said you'd be flying around, nothing on radar, nothing going on, blah blah. He said they were like giant fireflies, and they would just appear, disappear, come, go, fly. He said and sometimes there was even a turbulence with them. When they would go by the craft would kind of ripple as they went by. He said even a few times he felt like maybe that the structure had even momentarily changed, like it was some type of warping field that went through the craft. I mean, wow. To me, they're fascinating, and I would love to know what they were. But like with the Nazis, I mean, come on, Nazis had the first jet, had the V-bomb. They were well on the way to having the first nuke. They were just cruising along.
Technology, absolutely.
If Hitler would have waited 3 or 4 more years to start a war until he had all this technology, he would have whooped everyone's ass.
He would have won the war. Absolutely.
It would have been, he just would have went around the world. It would have been over with, and we'd all be Zeke Island today. I don't know if we could even do this kind of radio. Yeah, they'd be like, but
the Foo Fighters. Do you think they were piloted or were they remote control or orbs?
I often wonder about that.
Tough question, I know, but
well, a lot of pilots described them. They would tell you they thought they were under intelligent control because of the way they moved.
Right.
But some of the descriptions I got, I would think these things were maybe Volkswagen size. So I guess they could have a pilot in them. Now, from some of the moves they described, they must have inertial dampers of some kind because it would kill any human in there. You'd be squashed against one wall or the other. So obviously, if they do, I got to say, because we got all these orbs over the years, and what I've learned about this is some of them are definitely man-controlled. The majority of them, though, I think, are some type of probe with some type of technology. Probably could be pre-programmed. There may even be some type of partial AI in there or something. But the ones that messed with the pilots, because of the way they mess with them, I often thought they must have been some kind of being or something, because they seemed like they were enjoying what they were doing. Like they were just having fun teasing these guys, saying, "Look, this is real technology. You're in some flying piece of crap, man. Let me show you what a real flying craft is." You're like, "What the hell? Yeah, I want one of them. I'll go whip the Nazis."
I wanted to exactly. I wanted to bounce this off you, Joe. The Israeli Prime Minister said a few weeks back that there are aliens living in the world. And this was a declassified document, I guess, from the Israeli Mossad intelligence. And he also said to people that he also advised President Trump of this, that there are aliens, of course, and hybrids living among us. What are your thoughts on that, or that news story?
Well, hybrids is a really strange thing to talk about, because most hybrids couldn't live on Earth even if they wanted to, because they simply just don't look the part, and their abilities stand out too much. There's a book out there Helen Literal read, Rachel's Eyes, talks about her daughter who was a hybrid, who went to college and was followed around by the Secret Service. This is a true story, by the way. The Secret Service documented all of this, and she had to have special food, special things, and eventually they came and took her because she was too different. She even looked different. I mean, she looked kind of like one of the tall whites, like a cross between a tall white and a human. And it seemed like the older she got, the more it kind of stood out, and the more her needs seemed to be more alien than human. So the majority of them couldn't live here if they wanted to. And then the Greys are funny about who they'll let mess around with what. There are probably a few hybrids running around doing particular projects and things, but for the most part, they don't want them here because they can get out of control too easily. And they don't want our government getting their hands on super hybrid technologies. That's another thing that they would probably disintegrate or be destroyed, but we're pretty sure all the men in black are hybrids. Some people seem to think they're a rogue group at Graves.
Interesting.
But we're pretty sure they are, and things like what they described a red-headed doctor, who's a doctor that tends to show up at a lot of abductions, a lot of stirrup, they call them stirrup parties because there's usually 8 or 10 women on this. It's like a metal rotating disc with stirrups on so the doctor can come and examine them. But they talk about this red-headed doctor. He's usually like 6'3", 6'4". His hair is usually either red or ginger or something along those lines. He's always in scrubs, and a lot of times he's got a mask on. And I've heard this story countless times, but he's definitely some kind of hybrid. And, you hear about these men in black, they're definitely some type of hybrids. But for the most part, I just don't think they allow them. I don't think our government would allow them here, and I don't think the aliens would allow them here. It's too much of a risk that one of them might get caught. Because if someone like you or I got hold to one of them and managed to get, 8 or 9 media sources out there, because today it's a little different. If I got hold to one right now, went live like on YouTube and Rambler and BitTube and all the ones were on, plus the 150 archive sites were on, it would be hard to get that information down quickly. And by the time they did, it would really had been assimilated across the internet, and there would be questions that would have to be answered. You got to keep a tight lid on it even today. What was that? Somebody just tagged?
Absolutely.
Somebody texted me a question.
Now, you had mentioned in your astronaut contacts and the folks that you've spoken about that the Third Reich, that the Nazis got to the moon first, and you were saying that they had advised you that there was some wreckage on the moon with a swastika on it.
Well, they
said out supposedly by aliens on the moon.
Yeah, they say somewhere near the end of the war, they say that the Nazis launched several craft that went to the moon, and these craft were designed to land, and tubes come out and form a colony of 5 little discs, and that's how they started a colony. And there's some evidence to say that that's actually what happened. But according to the astronauts, they were there and had set up their colony when the Greys came. And for some reason, nobody knows why, the Greys just wiped them out. Didn't take them hostage, didn't do anything with them. Just wiped them off the face of the moon like, you can't be here yet. And poof, they were gone. Now,
wow.
And we know that must be true because today there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 orbiters around the moon taking pictures nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if the colony was still there, because dark side, light side don't matter, they're orbiting the moon, we would have seen it by now. Unless they've got some kind of stealth like the Greys do. The Greys have a colony there, but it's a small one, but you can't see it. Not yet, anyway. We haven't got that kind of technology yet.
Is the moon, is it artificial?
I
is it
wonder
actually
about that.
a moon base? A lot of people think it's like the Death Star from the movie Star Wars.
And actually, what's funny about that? There's an old story from the Sumerians that talked about this moon-sized thing that used to come here every once in a while. Some people think it was Planet Nerebru or whatever it was. But in one of the off texts, there was a suggestion that the moon itself was a craft that originally brought life to this world, meaning not just it brought the original aliens that created us. Yeah. And when they died out, the moon was just left in orbit. Now, that would actually date. Would date humans a much older date because we know how long the moon's been in orbit, approximately how long it's been in orbit. So it would have to make us much older than what we are, but it's hard to say. And then we don't know if we're exactly right about the moon either. So we do know it's drifting away from the Earth about 2.5 inches every year. So eventually its ass will be gone. But other than that, I know we've pinged it a couple of times. It sounds hollow. We've crashed stuff into it.
That's what I was getting at. Right.
It does sound hollow.
They bounce the radio waves off it or something, and it sounds hollow.
Right? Oh, we've run spacecraft into it. I mean, into it and it pings. We've pinged it. Like we'd ping a submarine or anything like that in the ocean. We've pinged it, and it sounds hollow. And most people don't realize we've got lasers up there. One of my friends said, "How can you prove we went to the moon?" I said, "Well, we put reflectors on the moon." He said, what do you mean? I said, we put reflectors on the moon. We shoot lasers at them. I said, it helps us measure the speed at what we're moving. It helps us measure the distance the moon's traveling away. I said, but there's a bunch of them out there. We've put up, 4 or 5 of them over the years. And I said, and that's how we put them up there. The astronauts set them up. And they're like, oh. I said, yeah. And I said, every time people ask me and say, oh, we didn't go to the moon. Really? I said, first off, it took 70 countries to track the moon landing. 70. So what you're telling me is the scientists and people in 70 countries are going to lie. And God help us if the Russians or the Chinese would have found that we were faking it. It would have been everywhere. Even today, if they found that today, it would be
exactly.
So it wasn't faked, and the other countries wouldn't have got so upset if it was faked, because they could have said, "Well, they faked it. We don't have to worry about going up there." Now it's great to watch the new space programs. We got 7, 8, 9 countries building rovers and going to Mars. I mean, we're looking at exciting things coming. Eventually, the aliens are going to have to reveal themselves because we're pushing further and further out. We won't see it in my lifetime, but I'm in my 50s. But by the time my son's in his 60s, we'll be out at least to the gas giants. We'll have colonies in Io or Europa, places like that. We'll have them out in and I was talking about this earlier. The way we're going to do this is we're going to establish a colony in the moon. Then we're going to set up a launching platform in zone L11, which is in between Mars and the moon. Then we're going to colonize the moon. Then we're going to start putting little small colonies out in the asteroid belt so we can mine it and start, putting in labs out there and start setting up refineries on Mars. And then we're going to push out to Jupiter's moons. And then we're going to push out to Saturn's moons. And then we're going to push out to probably Pluto because it looks like we could put a base there, or Charon. Then we're going to push out to the edge of the Oort cloud, which by that time, by the way, then that puts us 2 light years out. That's halfway to Proxima Centauri. So from there, we're going to push out about a light year, which puts us less than a light year from Proxima. So it's stepping stones. You'll leave Earth, you'll go here, you'll go there, you'll stop here, you'll go there, stop here. Within 6 or 8 years, you'll be going through the solar system. By the end of your trip, you'll be at Proxima in a new world. And we'll keep doing that. And the galaxy is 160,000 years across. At half a light speed, we can explore a whole galaxy in 320,000 light years, in 320,000 years. In a billion years, actually, in 100 million years, we could have explored the galaxy 100 times over completely, have colonies everywhere. In a billion years, which is how old the Greys are supposed to be, we'll have colonized everything all over the frickin' place. And we still will have not traveled at the speed of light. So I like people to understand that, because everybody always bases their arguments on why aliens can't be here, because we can't travel faster than the speed of light. Well, we don't have to. It doesn't have to be like that, even though they have proven light speed does exist, because certain light fragments and other things going around Jupiter sometimes slows slower than the speed of light, and sometimes it speeds up past the speed of light. It's actually been measured now. So we do think we can go faster than light speed now. Light speed's not going to be the trouble, people. Inertial damper is going to be the trouble. You know what's going to happen the first time? Oh, you get on board the Enterprise and they kick in light speed, and you don't have inertial dampeners, you're going to be mush. And wait. More importantly than those two, you got to have some kind of sensors that can see out at least 1,000 light years ahead of you. You're going to be running into every damn thing at light speed. People don't think about these things. They're always worried about light speed. There are things. Look, people, you're going to have to be able to see you're traveling the speed of light, okay? 186,000 miles per second. You're going to have something that can see way the hell ahead of you, or else it's going to be a bad scene. You'll be running into suns, dark asteroids. I mean, it's a nightmare. So, it's going to take time, but we'll get there. But within 200 years, I guarantee y'all, ladies, if we don't blow each other up, within 200 years, you're going to be amazed at where we are in space. Space will be the number one industry running this planet. We'll be colonized, and we'll be all over. And once we start colonizing, unless we start a war with some omnipotent super race, we're guaranteeing the survival of our species, people. Mars can be colonized. Venus can actually be colonized easier than Mars can. Terraformed, I mean. Most people don't realize it, but at one time, Earth and Venus were identical. Venus's upper atmosphere is identical to Earth. Yeah, so if you can cool it off, what's funny is if you could take the greenhouse gases from Venus and send them to Mars, you could terraform 2 planets at one time. Because all you got to do is cool Venus down to terraform it. Mars, you got to heat up and thicken up the atmosphere to terraform it. So seems like a ready-made solution to me. We could have three colonizers.
Another fantastic interview by the UFO expert Joe Montaldo. Joe, it's been a pleasure having you on the Von WEHUNT Show tonight. Really, thank you, man. And
I love coming on.
You are a wealth of information, sir.
Yeah, anytime. You know, I love to chit chat.
You really are. We really appreciate you. Well, we're going to have you on again in 2021. I love this subject. I'm very into it. The UFOs, the aliens, the Area 51, the Third Reich, and the UFOs that they had at Roswell. It's just a fantastic field and genre, and you are a leader of it and very involved with it and very knowledgeable, sir. And we really appreciate your time. And coming on the Von WEHUNT Show tonight.
Maybe that's where the Nazis went to Dulce.
What would be your final thoughts or comments to the cosmos, to the Galactic Federation, and to the Americans and people all over the world that are listening right now to this great radio show? What would you say, Joe?
I'd say, people, stop putting up the bullshit, start looking for the truth, and stand up for yourselves. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself either being probed by extraterrestrials or learning how to speak Mandarin. Your choice. Bond's like, what? Wait, what? Hey, look, I'm as much a politician.
I love it. Joe, it's always a pleasure. Great talking to you, sir. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I hope to talk to you again very, very soon.
You too. You have a safe Christmas, man. Stay away from these COVID crazies and watch for the zombie apocalypse. Or in this case, the COVID apocalypse.
Yes.
Be safe, Bond.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Folks, that was Joe Montaldo. Fantastic guest. He's the founder and national director of ICAR, the International Community for Alien Research. Yes, strange days. We had our great VIP guest, Joe Montaldo of Ancient Aliens, on the Von WEHUNT Show tonight. And in 1895, Nikola Tesla reportedly made a discovery which suggested that time and space can be altered or influenced by magnetic fields, which led to a number of experiments that allegedly gave birth to the infamous Philadelphia experiment in World War II, where they made the battleship disappear on the East Coast. I would say this: if Nikola Tesla was alive today, he would be a big fan and listener of the Von WEHUNT Show. It's also been said that many of Nikola Tesla's paperwork and plans and drawings and sketches of new and improved inventions for space travel was taken after his death, seized by the U.S. government, because Nikola Tesla was also talking and negotiating with our ally in World War II via Stalin and Russia,